my name is Daniela, welcome back to my channel, and today we have the July reading wrap up. In July I have read 8 books. We are on target. 8 books is roughly what I should be reading every month in order to hit my yearly reading goal that I have set, which I am currently behind on by 17 books. Shh, we won't talk about that. We will, however, talk about the 8 books that I have read. First up, we have Heatwave by Victor Justin. This is a very short book coming in at about 104 pages. I would say this is literary fiction with a little bit of a thriller element. The concept of this book is we are following a teenage boy who is on his summer vacation at a campsite in France, and he goes for a walk one night, comes across a boy at the playground who has used the ropes of a swing to try and hang himself. Our main character Leonard finds him after he is in dire straits, but is not yet dead, and Leonard stands there and watches and doesn't do anything. Once the boy is dead, Leonard panics and decides he's going to bury the body. This happens at the beginning of the book. The days that follow are some of the hottest days in many years, and so we're following this teenage boy who has effectively committed a crime, and it's very hot, he's very disorientated, but he is also just a teenage boy, so the story kind of centres around his thoughts and feelings, his behaviours, and I must say, for such a fascinating synopsis, it was a little bit boring. The ending of this book also really annoyed me because it kind of leaves it in a place where you're kind of unsure what's just happened. It left things unresolved for me. I wanted the resolution and I didn't get that. And so for me, this ended up being a 2-star read. I think it probably would have scraped a 3-star had I not been so disappointed by the ending. Next up, we have Making a Scene by Constance Wu. I listened to this on audiobook, and whilst some parts were interesting, I didn't find this audiobook holding my attention. Although I normally struggle with listening to audiobooks, it's normally for fiction. I'm normally quite good when it comes to non-fiction, especially when the person that's written the book is the one narrating it, and especially in a memoir type format. This one just was not for me. I don't feel like this book brings anything to the table outside of the author's life and experiences. Which, okay, yes, it is a memoir. It is supposed to be about the author, but I feel like there are other memoirs that have a lot more to say about society and the world that we're living in, whilst also talking about the author's life. And for that reason, I gave this one 2 stars. Next up, I read Lord of the Flies by William Golding. Where do I start with this book? I feel like I expected more from this book than what I got. My expectations were up here, and the book was down here. And there is a specific reason for that. The book is very, very descriptive. It's very good at describing the surrounding area. It goes into a lot of detail about the surroundings and the plants and the types of plants and the colours. I can't really picture things in my head. I don't get images. I'll get like flashes of small parts. Like I can focus in on tiny things. So like I can't picture like a full face, but I can like individually picture like an eye and then a nose and then like some hair. I'm not great with books where there is a lot of description, unless it's done in a way where it's maybe linked to like feelings or emotions. If it's purely descriptive of what something looks like, I find that really boring because I just can't picture it. Behind that, there is obviously the main plot line, and I found it very slow. It felt like it took quite a while for things to happen. I think I was over halfway through this book before the shit hit the fan. And I just don't think I'm a huge fan of a massive build-up. I don't think I like slow burn in any format. I want to just like get in there, just throw me in it. So while I was not enthralled by this book, and at times found it very, very dull, for some reason, the last page of this book, there is a few lines, literally a few lines, a couple of sentences that just got to me. I cried. I didn't feel like I cared much about the characters in the book. I thought the characters, for the most part, were pretty dumb. And they're young boys. They're young boys. They're children and teenage boys. I can't relate. I've just checked it. It's 1 sentence. It still gets to me, like, when I read it. So, although I didn't enjoy the book whilst reading it, I feel like the payoff was kind of worth it. If you have read it, I would love to know your thoughts, because I just feel like it was worth it for that one sentence, which sounds insane. I gave this book 3 stars just because obviously for the majority of it I was pretty bored and I wasn't enjoying it. Next up, I read A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. This is another one that I listened to on audiobook. Again, I would say another slow burn. This only really picked up towards the end of the book, and I didn't find it too creepy or atmospheric, but maybe that is because I had the speed turned up on the audiobook. And I did like where it went. I thought that was interesting. But the very, very, very slow build up to the ending, again, was just not for me. So in this book, we follow a character who has returned home to visit her mother, who lives in her grandmother's house. She doesn't have great memories of her grandmother and the kind of person her grandmother was. And while she's staying there, she notices a lot of odd things, such as there being 0 insects in the garden, or suddenly there's loads of one type of insect in the house, and there's all sorts of weird stuff happening like throughout the book all the way up to near the end. I gave this one 3 stars. It was an okay read. It wasn't anything mind-blowing. I did like the twists. I thought the final third of the book was quite interesting, but again, too slow burn for me. Next up, I read a graphic novel, which is This Was Our Pact by Ryan Andrews. This was recommended by Alison Pages. I absolutely love this one. I gave it 5 stars. I just think the artwork in this book is absolutely stunning. I found the story really whimsical and heartwarming. The whimsy starts very early on, and then we have this lovely little adventure story with this lovely magical undertone, and I just really, really enjoyed this. It made me feel like all warm and fuzzy inside. The artwork is just absolutely stunning. There are pages with like these full page spreads, and the artwork is just absolutely gorgeous. And then there's obviously the panelled pages, but it just flows really well. The artwork's really lovely, and the use of colour, there's different use of colour throughout the book depending on the current vibe of the book and what is happening. I was just smiling reading this and felt really happy after I'd finished it. So 5 stars. I will reread this. Next up, I read Final Girls by Riley Sager. I listened to this one on audiobook. This is a thriller, and we are following Quincy, who is a final girl. And we're flashing backwards and forwards between present day, where she is a survivor, and also several years prior on the night that she goes to a log cabin with her friends. And they all get murdered. So we're getting flashbacks from that night, and we're also following Quincy in the present day. Again, another book for me that felt quite slow burn. I understand that like with thrillers you normally don't get the reveal until the end, but I like a fast-paced thriller where it's like go, 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 and there's something to keep me interested all the way through. I think No Exit by Taylor Adams is really, really good for that, for keeping your interest and keeping you on your toes all the way through. This one, again, felt like a bit of a slow burn, and I was a little bit disappointed with the ending. It felt like it was a bit predictable, kind of like some cheesy 90s horror film, and it just felt very much like something that has already been done in the film industry, but put into a book. Again, I think this is another me problem. I feel like maybe people that don't watch horror would enjoy this kind of thriller, but for me, I've watched a lot of horror films, and Final Girls just felt like a bit of a basic bitch horror film to me. I feel like I'm being brutal today. I did give it 3 stars. It wasn't bad. Next up, I read another graphic novel, and I read Snapdragon by Kat Leigh. In Snapdragon, we follow our main character, Snap, who one day runs into the town's rumoured resident witch, and actually strikes up sort of a friendship with this person. This was a fun little read. It has some lovely LGBTQ rep. It has a little bit of magic sprinkled in there, and it also has a really lovely ending. This one was a very quick read for me, great for a break in between longer reads, and again, it also has really nice artwork and quite a colourful colour palette. I gave this one 4 stars. And the final book that I read in July was The Drowned Woods by Emily Lloyd-Jones. This one started out really promising for me. I thought it was going to be at least a 4 stars. I really liked the characters that were introduced early on in the book. I liked the character dynamics. The book didn't go the way I expected it to go. I also felt like there was, again, a lot of build-up to get to the main part of the story. Early on, I thought we were getting this heist, like 6 of Crows, and that the majority of the book was going to be about that. but it ended up being a very small portion of the book, which was a little bit underwhelming, and there were definitely some twists towards the end of this book, but I don't really like where the plot went, and I thought it was going to be a lot more exciting than it actually was. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars. It was okay, it was a nice fantasy read. It wasn't bad. I just felt like the beginning of the book set me up with much higher expectations for what was going to happen than what actually happened. I am trying to get through my Illumicrate and Fairy Loot books from last year's subscriptions because I had read barely any of them. So I am trying to get through these, and I'm interested to compare this to the other books that I got from Illumicrate last year and also from Fairy Loot. If I compare this to The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea, which also is rooted in folklore, I definitely enjoyed that one much more than this. I'd love to know what you've been reading this month. Let me know in the comments. And if you have any recommendations for me based on what I have been reading and enjoying, please do let me know. We did recently pass 1,000 subscribers. Welcome to anyone that is new. Thank you for all of those who have stuck around so far. As always, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I will see you next time. Fade to gray as you fade away.